Hi guys, you're welcome to So Much Fun with Delanis, and on today's episode we're going to be doing this bow and how I achieved this bow on this dress. So let's get right down to it. It's very easy. All you need is about 2 meters of satin fabric and we're good. So after making the front of the dress, taking in the dart and the rest, what I did was to measure where I wanted to get the bow to start from, the midpoint. I marked the midpoint and how long I wanted the bow to be. So after that, I measured and I got my exact point. So after getting an exact point, I noted it down and I brought my satin over to start my cutting. So now the next thing I want to do is to fold up my satin into 2, right? Folding up into 2, and I'm going to be making sure I have enough for the second bow because we are working with 2 bows. So let me get this out of the way and then let's begin. So the next thing I did was to get a long was to get my space, like create a long line or a starting point. So now I couldn't find my ruler, so I had to do freehand sketching. So but when you're doing this, please make sure to use your ruler. And I forgot, if you haven't subscribed, please click on the subscribe button and then stay stuck with me. Thank you. So let's go back to it. So now the next thing I did was to get a length, that's the length for the bow, which was 19 inches. So I added 2 inches to the 19 inches to make 21, and after that I marked the midpoint. Then from the midpoint I determined the fold. Remember, the up side of the bow has a fold, right? And then the down is just plain or straight. So after I got all of that, I just had to cut out the pieces to get what I was working with so I could focus on that place. So after cutting off, then let's go into more details. So all I'm doing right here is just showing you that 19 plus 2, that's 21, and then I took the midpoint and then I took a 12 inches extra to fold over. You get me? So now from this place here, I'm going to be marking the midpoint, and after marking the midpoint, I'll take the midpoint all through, right? So from here, I'm going to mark 3 inches on both sides, or 2.5. Depends on how wide you want the bow, and then I'll extend it. So I'm extending based on my discretion. So if you want to do yours, just work with what works best for you. Sorry. So after extending, I made sure to extend properly, remembering that I have one side higher and the other longer. So I just took 3 inches on one side, and then I turned over the bow to make sure that I was concentrating on the fold. So when I turned over, I just marked the point and then just took a mental note of how I was going to do the spreading. So same thing I did here. I just spread this one straight up. I couldn't find my ruler, so I had to do a freehand cut. It wasn't so straight, but I made do with what I had. So the next thing I'm going to do is just to cut this way, right? So I took it this way, I cut this other way too. Just cut out this shape. Make sure yours is straighter than mine, or more straight than mine, and then we are good to go. So let's cut off. So after cutting this off, the next thing I want to do is to cut the second part of the bow, right? So I have the first part of the bow, I want to cut the second part of the bow. So while doing this, I realized I made a little bit of mistake, but I'm going to show us how I corrected it later on. Take note, this was my first time of making this bow, and I just wanted to record my process for future reference. So now to get the second side of the bow, all I'm going to do is just to add about 2 inches or 1 inch to each side. So it depends on what you want, right? I'm going to be adding 2 inches to the length and then 1 inch to the side. So I didn't have enough fabric, so I made do with what I had left. So I added not up to 1 inch on the side, but on the bottom part of the bow, which is going to be at the skirt area of the dress, I added 2 inches, and then to the top part also I added 2 inches. So after doing this, I was trying to get to make sure that I was going to get the fold, but then I also discovered my mistake here, which made me make the upper part of this bow straighter, right? So you can decide to take yours straight, the upper part, or spread it. It all depends on what you want to achieve or what kind of style you're trying to create, but whatever the case will be, everything will still come out looking nice. So if you notice here, I did a bit of the trimming for the upper part of the bow, and then I did the same for the other one, right? Yeah, so just take note of it. It could work the other way too, but I just didn't want it to be bulky inside. So the next thing I did was to bring out my stiffener, right? And then I used the stiffener to cut. I used this fabric to cut on the stiffener. So I had the same way I had 2 pieces of satin for each bow, was the same way I had 2 pieces of satin for the 2 pieces of stiffener, for the bow also. So after cutting, we'll go back to sewing. Let's get down to it. So after I was done cutting this, I'm just going to show us how to piece them up together on the sewing machine. So I got this out, and then the next thing I want to do is to make sure this is on each side of the bow, right? So you have right side facing right side of the satin, and then you have the stiffener on each side. Take note, right side facing right side and the stiffener on each side. So the next thing I'll do, I'll stitch all the way here, and I'll turn from the upper part. So I'm not closing up everything. Please take note, you're stitching just the curved side of the bow, the side, and then you're leaving or turning from the upper part. So let's stitch it down. So after I was done stitching down and turning and ironing, this was what it looked like, right? So the next thing I want to do is to make sure I've placed my bow properly, leaving the perfect space we're supposed to have, and then I'm going to turn this down and stitch. So what I want to do is I want to make sure I have the same 19 inches I was looking forward to, right, at the beginning, and then the extra for the second bow at the bottom. So the next thing I want to do is first take this one, make sure the pleats is staying in, and then I'll stitch this one down, and then I'm going to take the second bow and do the same thing before placing on each other. So let's get to it. So right here I'm done pressing down the bow, stitching it down. So I have this, right? So I'm going to stitch this together now, right? I'm going to make sure I stitch both of this together, and then I can now take over to the dress, stitch down to the dress and all of that. So after stitching together, the next thing I did was to get my dress. I brought my dress over and I made sure I put this at the midpoint where I marked my bow at the beginning. So after I put it down here, I'm going to take to the sewing machine. I'm going to stitch down, making sure I'm using a black thread underneath that's in my bobbin for my black thread, and I'm using the peach thread to stitch this down. So let's do that. So after stitching the bow, the next thing I wanted to do was to drape the velvet fabric over the bow to keep it on a hold and then to create the design. So I made sure that I pinned down my the drapes, right? Just be creative with what you want to do, but I was trying to create the kind of pleat on the bow, so I just got down with it. So it's just a process you can just watch through, create. You take you pick up your fabric 1 inch, you layer over, pick up 1 inch, layer over, and that was it. So all I did here was to just create the drape, and then we're good to go. So if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe to our channel, like, share, let us know what you think, let us know what you want to learn, and I'll be here to serve you that. So after doing this, I just wanted to get the perfect design I had in my head. I just wanted to get it down, and when I was done, I trimmed out the excesses, and then I took to the sewing machine and I finished up my dress. So after you're done, all you want to do is maybe use your hemming glue or your hemming gum to make the drape stay properly, because this is velvet and it's just not going to stay in place. So after everything, this was what it looked like. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.